The following story was submitted to us by a gentleman who wants to be called Nick. This is his encounter with Evelyn, the Maui surf girl. I would like to go by Nick. I don't want people to recognize me by sharing my story, and a handful of friends and family found out what happened. But here's how I fell for a scammer, hook, line, and sinker. I'm 37 years old, and my life was falling apart and being built again when this took place. Well, let me explain. I went through a very nasty divorce 2 years ago. My ex wife was unhappy with our lifestyle, and I couldn't keep up with her lifestyle and what we had built. My mortgage, our car payments, high end brand name clothes, trips, shoes, it became too much for me to keep up on. My ex wife started distancing herself from me, and come to find out, she was cheating on me with a mutual friend of her friend. We'll call her Amber, who introduced my ex wife to Trevor, the guy she left me for. He had a better job, lots of money, and had that fast and flashy lifestyle that was attractive to her. Well, at the time, this made me feel pretty worthless, and for quite a while, I went through some depression. During the divorce, she hired an attorney, and I really couldn't afford one. To make a very long story short, I ended up filing bankruptcy, lost my home in the divorce, my car, and ended up taking a stress leave from my job and eventually never returned. I moved to a new state for a fresh start, financially got myself grounded again, and found myself rebuilding my life one paycheck at a time with my new job. It was about the 1 year mark in my divorce that I finally had started seeing my life coming together. I had a decent little apartment, finally gained some furniture and a bed to sleep on, and while my car wasn't new, it got me where I needed to be. It was humbling. And as I did this rebuilding, while proud of my coming out of the other side of this divorce, I was lonely. I had lost a lot of my mutual friends of my ex wife's, and my social media was really lame. In fact, I started a whole new profile on Instagram so I could get away from the past. I had a few work friends and people I knew around where I lived, but I really didn't have anyone special in my life or even someone just to hang out with and have fun with, especially someone from the female persuasion. I wasn't sure if I wanted a relationship, but I knew I wanted to meet people, and I was hopeful I would meet someone to maybe get to know and see where it might lead. And this is where I met Evelyn on Instagram. She, from what I could tell, started following me, I think after I commented on some public pages. I think she found me from a comment I made about a building of a new stadium in town that I live in. And that's what made me first think she was a local. Evelyn messaged me and said she thought my comment was great and she was curious how I was doing and if I was single. Her profile had tons of followers, tons of posts. She was absolutely beautiful, and it looked like she maybe liked to travel a lot. I had no indication that she was a fake, and like I said, thousands of followers, loads of photos and videos that matched the caption. One was of her on a beach, and she had a hashtag that said Maui fun, Maui love. I messaged her telling her I was single. I'm divorced in my late 30s. Evelyn told me she was 29 years old and lived in Maui, but was originally from Los Angeles. And she told me I was handsome and asked what I did for work. I told her, and she told me she was a model, which I kind of laughed off at first, but then she told me to check her Insta, which proved to me, yeah, she's a model. She had tons of posts that had popular surf brands behind her, like on surfboards and towels, and she told me she's been a model for 7 years now and that she's able to live in Maui because of her job. She asked if I had kids, which I don't, but I told her I hope someday to meet the right one and maybe have a family. I shared with her my divorce and what had happened. She told me her ex boyfriend cheated on her with several women, and it left her feeling depressed, and she found it hard to trust again. I told her I felt the same, and I'm not a cheater. She asked me for my Zangi number. She asked if I had Zangi, and I'd never heard of this app, and Evelyn insisted I should use it. She gave me her Zangi code and told me to get the app and then get a code and add her on there. I navigated myself onto this app and we connected. We started chatting, and she sent me photos of her home in Maui and told me about her ex, how he cheated and how it destroyed her, and she couldn't find a genuine man to be with and someone that would be faithful. I think, though, our cheated exes, we learned to be there for each other. Evelyn would often leave for a few days at a time for photo shoots, but she always messaged me on Zangi. I felt like we were connecting, and I wanted to show her that good guys do exist. She would always send me photos and even sent me a video of her on the beach, but the sound was very low. I could hardly make out her voice. I had tried several times to audio call her, but she was always out at work, and she said her promotions manager would get mad if she was on the phone when she was supposed to be preparing for a photo shoot. I noticed on her Instagram she would post her photo shoots and everything lined up with our chats. Evelyn and I would text late into the night, too. She would ask me for photos and videos, and I sent her some. And some of her requests were asking me to stand and wave to the camera or hold up my right index finger and take a photo. I think she wanted to make sure I was the real deal. I started giving her other kinds of photos and videos too that were more adult in nature, and she always wanted my face in the photos and videos. Evelyn asked me if we could start dating and be committed to each other. She said she trusted me fully, and I was always treating her like the queen she is online. I told her, well, I'm a little older than you, and asked if that bothered her, and she said age is just a number, and that I was such a good man to her, and I took away her stress from work. Her manager, though, was very dominant with her. He had tried to control all of her movements. She said he was like a father to her as her real parents were deceased. They had passed in a plane accident many years ago, and she's been on her own since she was 18, and her manager had taken her under his wing, but he controlled everything she did. We started this online thing, but she never posted on her Instagram about me, and she told me her manager would want to investigate me and likely try to break us up. She had a few more months on her modeling contract before she could quit and get rid of her manager. She even asked me if I could manage her career, and I told her, well, I had gone to college for business. I bet we could do this together. I told her I was more than willing to control her social media profile and help her promote herself, but she said she had to wait until her manager was fired as he had control over her social media, and the Zangi app was private and secret, so we could keep chatting here without worry. Evelyn told me that she was going to be flown to the Ivory Coast to do a photo shoot, and she would be leaving Friday. This was Sunday when she told me. And then I didn't hear from her for a whole day, which kind of had me worried. She finally messaged me telling me that her manager and her had gotten into an argument and he had broken her phone and she had to buy a cheap replacement, but it wasn't working correctly. It had no data, and she needed to replace her old phone, which was an iPhone Pro Max. I told her, I have an iPhone. I love it. And she asked me if I would be able to buy her an iPhone Pro Max and she would pay me back when she returned from her modeling trip and was back in Maui. I told her I could add her to my account and get her an iPhone and we could meet up before her flight if she'd like. And she told me she didn't want her manager to know about the phone or see her spending money. So she asked if I could get her the phone for her and mail it overnight to her cousin who lived in Florida, and her cousin could ship it to her at the Ivory Coast where she's modeling for her film shoot, and her manager wouldn't know and think it was her cousin sending her some treats, as her cousin often mailed her some fresh baked cookies when she was on the road. I told her I'll do anything for her, and it's important she has a good working phone. I ended up buying her an iPhone Pro Max and mailing it overnight to her cousin who lived in Orlando, Florida. Evelyn went on her trip to the Ivory Coast and posted photos to me on the beach there. She said she couldn't wait for it all to be over because her manager was being so mean to her and making her work long hours in the hot sun. She said her cousin did get the phone and had overnight shipped it, express by DHL, so she did get it at the Ivory Coast. She thanked me and told me I was the best boyfriend ever. She then asked me if I could get her an iTunes card to load her phone, as she asked me for $100 card, and of course I got it for her. I wanted to show her a real man will take care of her, not like her ex. We would chat at night, and I kept sending her videos at night, and she couldn't wait to meet me. We planned on meeting a week after she got back to Maui. I had plans to fly out and meet her there, and we would stay at her beach house. I started looking at flights, but Evelyn told me to wait until she got back to Maui and would get the house cleaned and prepare for me to visit first. She wanted a week or two after her contract ended and she got home just to unwind. I agreed to wait and we continued to talk while she was working on the Ivory Coast. She told me she thought her manager was starting to take money from her because when she went to use her debit card at a local mall, it had declined. She had said that her manager had gotten mad at her when she questioned him and told her not to shop so much. Evelyn said her manager was controlling when she ate, what she bought, and she was feeling sick. She told me she befriended a nice lady at the hotel she was staying at, and the lady was sneaking food into her room late at night. Evelyn told me she was having heat exhaustion due to not being given water during her photo shoots, and the sun was very hot there. Evelyn asked me if I could wire the hotel worker some money so the worker could buy Evelyn medicine as she had fallen ill from the heat and would be able to sneak her some food from a market, as the hotel manager was suspecting the hotel worker of stealing food and she didn't want her to lose her job over all this. She gave me the name of the hotel worker, and I did a Western Union online transfer of $500 to the hotel worker in the Ivory Coast. Evelyn told me the worker did get the money and was able to get her some medicine to help with dehydration and brought her snacks and food that she would hide in her hotel room. I told Evelyn that once she's home, she better hope I never meet her manager as we would have more than words. Evelyn loved how I was her protector. She then asked me if I could get another $100 iTunes card as she was using a lot of her card balances and being stuck in the hotel, and she said her manager was not letting her go to the mall, just to the photo shoots and then back to the hotel, and that her manager had taken total control of her bank account. Evelyn told me she wanted to go home and that the contract was over by this time, but the manager was refusing to let her go home, that he kept booking more photo sessions, and he wanted her to now fly to Milan, Italy, and was putting her on a plane for a fashion show. She cried to me in text that she was exhausted and wanted to go home to Maui, but her manager had her bank card. I told her to call the police and have the hotel worker call the police, but she said she was scared. She said she would have to fly to Milan the next morning for a fashion show and be forced to model. I told her once she got to Italy to go to the police and file a report. They can help her there. But she said her manager would make a scene. She messaged me that she had arrived in Milan and the manager had her in the hotel. When I asked her which one, she refused to tell me. Evelyn asked me if I would be willing to help her get home, that she was able to befriend one of the lighting directors of photography and he was willing to sneak her to the airport and get her on a flight to Maui. The cost of the flight would be $4,000 as it was last minute. She told me if I could wire the money to the lighting director, he would book her flight, and she gave me his name and information. His name was very long, and the city I sent the money to was in Milan. Evelyn said he was able to get the money and he booked the flight, but now upon getting ready to sneak out, she discovered her passport was missing from her purse. Her manager was holding it. At this point, I told her to call the police. This doesn't sound right to me. Evelyn told me that the lighting photographer could sneak into the manager's hotel room and obtain her passport, but it would be dangerous, and he wouldn't do it for free. He would need $10,000 to do this. I told Evelyn I don't have that kind of money. I was already living on payday loans to cover the money for her flight that I sent. Evelyn started asking why I didn't love her, and she knew I was no good, just like her ex. I started to try and call her over and over, and she refused my calls. She said she'd be trapped forever in Milan and forced to be a model on the runway forever, always doing shows. I need help, she texted over and over. Don't you love me? She kept saying. I was so upset over this. I told her I'll book a flight out to Milan and get you home. But she said no, it was too dangerous. Let the lighting director get my passport. I told her I'm going to contact the Italian police. Tell me the name of the hotel you're at. And she would told me to stop meddling in her business, and I just need to send the $10,000. This is when I became angry. I told her to tell me the hotel you're at now. I'm sending the police. And Evelyn didn't respond for hours. My texts were read, but she ignored them. Finally, Evelyn or someone messaged me with directions to send the $10,000 within 24 hours, or my videos and photos will be posted to my family, friends, and my employment website that I worked at. At the time, my employment website was public, and I had an employee website and forum that anyone could write on. I tried calling Evelyn, and a man answered. I asked who this was, and he started laughing at me, telling me to send the $10,000 or he would expose me for what I was, a nasty man. I started to plead with this person and demanded he put Evelyn on the phone. I thought this was her manager, and this man laughed and told me not to worry. Evelyn is here. You're talking to her. And he called me a moo and told me I have 23 and a half hours to send the $10,000. And he texted me the name of a bank account in Milan with this long name, which was supposed to be this lighting director. I told him I do not have that kind of money. So he told me, too bad then, my family would know all about me. I deleted my Instagram, the Zangy app, and blocked the number of Evelyn. For the next day, I was in a panic, thinking my career, personal life would be destroyed. And it was about 2 days later when my sister and mother called me. They received videos and photos of me from someone named Emmanuel. Well, Emmanuel was the name of this so called lighting photographer, and it was exposing me and my personal videos that I had sent to Evelyn. So I had to explain to my mother and sister what happened, and my sister actually laughed at first, but then heard the whole story and felt sad for me. They blocked Emmanuel, and my mom went into mama bear mode and told Emmanuel off and told him that we tracked his location and the Italian police and the bank was onto him. My mom then started getting messages from strangers online making threats to her. We kept having to block these people for weeks on end. Thankfully, though, my work never found out, but a friend of mine who I play basketball with was messaged on his Instagram and shown the photos and videos. I think the scammer found him because I was tagged in one of his photos playing basketball. He wouldn't let me live it down and he laughed at me, but in a brotherly way. Like he felt bad for me, but he told me I should have known better that some model, quote, ain't going to be dating me online. He then showed me the photos of who Evelyn really was and gave me the real woman's Instagram profile. Yes, she was a model and a surfer, but Evelyn wasn't her name. Someone had stolen her photos and created this whole new fake profile. He told me to check this fake profile's followers, and then we checked it on his Instagram as I had already blocked Evelyn. They were all Nigerian men following this fake Evelyn profile. He told me it was likely a guy from there pretending to be female, but I told him I did hear Evelyn's voice, and he told me it was probably the dude's girlfriend. They do this all the time. They're crime scamming teams. I felt so stupid after it was all done. I lost a lot of money in the form of cash and gift cards. But thank God I didn't find the 10 G's to send to him or her or whoever it was that I was speaking to. Thanks. That's my encounter. We'd like to thank this gentleman for sharing his story. Unfortunately, this does happen often, and guys are less inclined to share their scam encounter stories. And we do encourage guys to come forward and share their stories to let other guys know that they're not alone and that women are not only just the victims of romance scams, men fall for romance scams as well. If you'd like to share your encounter, you can remain anonymous or you can give me a fake name if you don't want to be known. You can find us scamming at gmail.com or you can find us on FB Scamming Cyber Education. Our inbox is there as well. Just drop us a message, let us know what's going on, share your story, any screenshots and information you have, and we can narrate your story into a video. Remember, your story may help others to come forward, and it does help in the healing process. We get a lot of people who email us thanking us for sharing these stories because it helped them to know that they weren't alone. Until next time, stay safe and don't give gift cards or money to so called online models. Take care.